You know, most people give up when things get hard. When the plan doesn't go as planned. When no one's watching or believing. But what if we didn't? What if we kept showing up? What if we kept trying? What if? Jean Todt did exactly that. From the co-driver's seat to the world stage, he wasn't born a legend. He became one. He redefined things. Not because it was easy, but because he refused to stop. Step by step, deal by deal, race by race. Pressure? What pressure? Ferrari, Formula One, United Nations, it was discipline, vision, impact, method, and resilience. This year, what if you start your story and actually finish it? One human, one story.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first session of One Human, One Story. Today, we're excited to introduce someone whose journey shows how passion and determination can lead to incredible achievements, both in sports and in making changes around the world. Jean Todt started his career as a co-rally driver and soon became a key figure in the industry. As a director of the Peugeot Talbot Sport, he led this team to various victories, including endurance races such as the 24 Heures du Mans or even the Paris-Dakar. Lastly, his story is a powerful example of how one person's drive can make a difference on the track and in the world.
And now, we have the honor of welcoming the legendary F1 team builder himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Monsieur Jean Todt.
So, Mr. Todt, thank you for being here. Let's start from the very, very beginning. Could you tell us a short story about how and why you decided to enter this industry in particular?
So first, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here with you, young, new and future leaders, and congratulations for making this event happening, because you demonstrated passion, a sense of conviction, so it's my pleasure again to be here. So maybe, can you ask me your question again?
Yes. Could you tell us a short story about how and why you decided to enter this industry?
Well, before talking about industry, I would say I was passionate since my childhood about cars and motor racing. My father was a doctor. He had nothing to do, and he had no financial capabilities to help except encouraging me to study, which I did not do enough. And as I had the passion, I was trying to see in which angle I could start. My first thought was, when you are young, and even when you are old, you have always some people your heroes, people who make you dreaming, which is very good. And at this time, the one who was making me dreaming was a driver. Maybe some of you remember, he was a Formula One champion called Jim Clark, with a blue helmet. At the time, it was open helmet. Nothing compared, we could see his face or his mask. It was not because of COVID, but it was because of safety, which is another kind of safety in a way. And that's, I got into it, and for me, I would say the most affordable step to get into this world was as being a co-driver, and that's simply how it started.
And you started as a rally co-driver. What drew you to that role, and did you ever consider being a driver instead?
Yes, I did. I said, I mean, that was my dream, to become a Formula One driver. And then, for me, which is a fascinating life, is kind of writing a book. You know, you are born, and then each one has a different story, and it's a kind of a long road. And that was my first thought, my first dream, until I was a co-driver. I became quite successful in. It wasn't really a job at the time, you know. It was more amateur, but still I became quite well known in my job. And finally, I decided that I will give another meaning to my life, and I loved leading people. So my dream to achieve was to become a head of motor racing department, giving me a target which was not later than being 35, and it what occurred.
So, who would you be able to say was your biggest influence when you first entered motorsports?
What do you mean by my biggest influence?
Well, it could be a mentor or any type of person who motivated you to continue working in this industry or even entering it.
I mean, listen, not really. I loved. I enjoyed first. I mean, when I started this role, I felt I was very blessed to be able to travel, being young, around the world, and to get new experience, new expertise, meeting new people. And then, so of course, I learned that that's why I wanted to work with many drivers, with many teams, mainly international, because I thought, I should be aware of only French surrounding, and that's how it worked, and it worked quite well.
So, as a leader and entrepreneur, what would you say was the biggest challenge of your career?
I mean, every day is a challenge. All depends what you need to achieve. So when I was a rally co-driver, my challenge was to be with the best driver, with the best team, and to have the best success. And then after that, to get to have enough influence to do more. And then when I become a head of motorsport, that it started with Peugeot. You were mentioning in this little film about rallying, about cross country, about Le Mans, was to try to be a good leader, a good example, and to be surrounded by the best people around me, which I feel is essential. I think human being can be good if we work together. So to create unity, and for me it's valid in any category, anything that you do alone, you cannot achieve as much as if you combine forces.
Now, you worked very closely with Michael Schumacher. What made him such a special driver, and how did you help shape his success?
Michael, in fact, Michael was first when I got to know him. I knew he was a great driver because in fact, I realized he was a great driver before he went into Formula One. And I think it was around years 92, 93. He started with a Sauber Mercedes in sports car. And at the time I was running the Peugeot team with the 905 in sports cars as well. And I realized he was very good. I remember it was a race in Japan, and I was very surprised. And then I met him at the airport, incidentally, in Japan. We were going back to Europe. And I expressed all my admiration for what I saw. until he went into Formula One. And in Formula One, he was very quickly very successful. So, of course, when we had to try to contract a good driver, he was the one to think about. And I realized that he was a hard worker, very, very humble, very committed. And what for me probably the most important thing, a great human being, you know, but that's was a part, you know, it's somebody incidentally, he was not, he's not living far from here, and he has 2 kids, Mick and Gina. He loved bringing them to school, looking after them, caring after them, so he had been, a loving father.
So what would you say is the key to building a strong team dynamic, like you did during your time at Ferrari?
Can you repeat?
What is the key to building a strong team dynamic, like you did during your time at Ferrari?
I mean, I think I partly answered to this question. You know, putting best people together, very, very ambitious. You know, it's like if you are sick, you go to a doctor. And you need to make sure that you have a good doctor because he's going to do the diagnostic. And then he gives you a prescription. So, in a way, when I joined Ferrari, I had to make the audit of the situation, make an assessment, propose some changes in terms of human being, in terms of layout, in terms of organization. And it took time, but finally it worked. But and also, you know, very often in life, I mean, you may be discouraged or you may do a mistake. You need to realize and you need to recharge the battery and never give up. I always say, make impossible possible. You know, very often. I mean, particularly I will say in our countries. In some other countries, mainly in Asia, people are more determined, you know. But in our countries, I mean, people have been used to a certain facility, and you ask something, it's not possible. And for me, it's something I don't want to hear. I want everything to be possible.
If you were in charge of Ferrari now, what would you change to get back on top, seeing their situation?
So, I mean, you know, I always say the advisors are not the payers. So, I think it would be inappropriate for me to give advice or what. I just, you know, for me, as I was mentioning also earlier, Ferrari has been a very important chapter in my life. That will be probably the most challenging, but also the most rewarding, which has then allowed me to do other things I love, like what I do now, like I've been doing over the past years, and I hope to do for some more years. Of course, I do follow racing, not only Formula One. You know, last weekend had a very intense weekend where incidentally Ferrari did very well. It was the 3rd time in a row in Le Mans. They had also Canada Grand Prix where it was quite hectic and challenging Grand Prix. So I love to follow, but I mean I've passed the time to give advice or to give opinion because it's not anymore my camp of responsibility.
If you could go back and change one decision in your career, what would it be?
You know, I hate answering to this kind of question because when people ask, what is your best memory? What is your worst memory? So, I mean, honestly, I don't have already answered that. It is sure I made some good decision. I made some wrong decisions. What is very important when you make wrong decisions is to learn out of it and say, I made the wrong decision, but it's the last time I will do that, and I will never do it again.
What would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received? And specifically, who gave it to you? The best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've received? I will say not so much advice, but I've been blessed to see some people in front of me who have been example. I will start with my father. You know, I was mentioning my father was a doctor, but he was a kind of humankind. He was very generous to people, and he was very devoted. So I like people, you know, who are humble, devoted, and who like to help the others.
So as FIA president, you pushed through major safety innovations. What do you think was your most impactful contribution to safety?
My most impact contribution. You know, again, it would be very presumptuous. I think I've been doing things very interesting, very different. Maybe the thing I feel I've been the best contribution for the society is the creation of our Brain Institute in Paris. You know, it came a time where I was very blessed to have close to me some amazing doctors who have been always very supportive in any circumstances. And then I thought, okay, they have been giving me so much in any kind of circumstances. What could I do? And then I suggested to build a private medical research center, which incidentally at the beginning, due to, accidents we had to face in my career, was about orthopedic surgery. And when I spoke about that to my friend, Professor Saillant, he liked the idea, but he thought that orthopedy was like chassis. We know how it works, but what we don't know is electronic, which is the brain. And we went into that, and today in biggest hospital in France, which is called Hôpital La Pitié-Salpêtrière, we have 25,000 square meters and 1,000 research people on brain, on the institute which is called ICM, Institut du Cerveau et de la Moelle Épinière, Brain Institute.
Alright, so for the Halo safety device, many drivers were resistant at first. But how did you manage to convince them that it was truly necessary?
So, going back on safety. Safety, for me, is a priority. And you can see all the progress which have been done. I was talking earlier about one of my former heroes, which was Jim Clark, and unfortunately he died in Formula 2 in a racing crash in Hockenheim. And I always felt and motor racing has always been considered as the most dangerous sport until a few years back. And always, in my different capacities, I was trying to see how we can make racing safer for the driver, for the spectator, for the marshals. And we did a lot. And you will remember that a few years ago, you had, in fact, between 94, where in Imola, Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger died, two same weekend. Between 94 and 2025, it had been one death in Formula 1, which is Jules Bianchi. And Jules Bianchi, he got his head hurt. In 2009, Felipe Massa, in Budapest, in Hungarian Grand Prix, also had his head hurt, fortunately without consequences. But Jules lost his life. So we realize that, a lot of progress had been done, but still the most vulnerable part of the driver in the car was the head. So I asked our engineers to try to, at the time I was president of the FIA, International Automobile Federation, and I asked, what could we do in order to make this part safer? And they came with the proposal of the halo. Halo is a head protection that you have seen. And of course, when I introduced that to the driver, to the team, they did not like. Because normally, very often people are reluctant to change, which I can understand. But for me, I say, is it a constructive change or not? And that was the question. If it's not constructive, why to change? But if it is constructive, if it's going to be a potential lifesaver, you have to do it. So when they made this presentation, they said to me, to my question, is it going to protect better the head of the driver? The answer was yes. So I say, okay, we will do it. And people were not happy. But those people who were not happy, at least one, which is Romain Grosjean, saved his life. So can you imagine how I would have felt by not having done something because people were reluctant and losing life? So sometimes, you have to make strong decisions, but if you have convinced that it's the right one, you have to do it. That's leadership.
Mr. Todt, how are you able to spot leadership potential in the younger generation?
You mean what kind of advice for young people for leadership?
Advice for young people that are trying to become leaders, or even how you're able to spot, for example, engineers that you think are leaders.
So first, I think, leadership is part of you. So I think you are born you have some genes. So I think if you are a good leader, it's something you learn, but it's something in you. And then, of course, as I was mentioning earlier, a good leadership is to be able to find the best people and to give them space and to allow them to progress, to allow them to learn, and also to make them learning by example.
Talking about failure, how are you able to approach failure, both personally and as a leader?
To approach?
How are you able to approach failure?
To approach failure?
Yes.
Normally you try not to approach failure. You try to lead them away, So maybe what you need, how you react in front of a failure. First, I think it's very important not to hide to yourself. So if you do a mistake, even if it's inconvenient to admit, I think it's important to face the mistake and then to see what needs to be done, to correct it, and to learn from that. But it's very important never to lie, and above all, never to lie to yourself.
So, while school is important, what can you tell us about the importance from learning from first-hand experiences?
Speak well into your microphone, because
what can you tell us about the importance of learning from first-hand experience rather than just from theory?
First-hand experience?
From learning from experience rather than just learning theories.
I'm not sure I understand this one.
Show me.
Which one? What is the best piece of advice you ever received? Best piece of advice?
I'll just move on to another question. So, what do you want the next generation of motorsport leaders to remember you for?
I mean, it's not a question. I mean, it's always rewarding when people speak good about your achievement. So, of course, you know, I'm not blind about what people have been thinking about me. And that's why, incidentally, I'm working on a book which takes a lot of time, incidentally, because I do care about people I do respect, I do love. So I mean, I really hope that those people will have good memories about me. And I mean, that I can be a good legacy for them and a good example.
Now, this might be a little less serious, but if you could put together a dream F1 team with any driver from history, who would you choose?
If I wanted to,
If you could make your dream F1 team with any driver from history and any car from history, what would you choose?
which driver I will choose? You know, I mean, life. When people ask me who has been the best driver, how can I compare what was Fangio at his time, Senna, Clark, Schumacher? I mean, you have period, you know. So clearly, every decade you have a great champion. But incidentally, it may be something which is very important, mainly in motorsport. You know, it's the same in any sport. You know, now you have new generation of tennis players. I'm sure everybody has seen the final in Roland Garros with such tight fight between Sinner and Alcaraz. You know, but 2 years earlier it was Djokovic and Nadal. You know, so it's just change of generation. Something is sure. I mean, a top sports man or woman have a specific period, you know. So over the years, you have different champions. Has it been the best ever? I don't know. Clearly, during the period I was involved in Formula One, the best driver for me and the one who will remain in my heart is Michael.
Alright, so do you have any advice for this audience of about 16 to 17-year-olds who are in the upcoming years probably going to get their driver's license? Any advice on staying safe?
I mean, you know, advice, clearly, hard worker, integrity, loyalty, and humility.
Thank you very much, Mr. Todt. We can move on to the Q&A questions for the audience.
Est-ce que je pourrais d'abord poser la question en français? Ok. Alors, Monsieur Todt, quels conseils donnerez-vous aux personnes qui penseraient poursuivre une carrière dans le sport automobile?
I mean, it's a large question. As a driver, as engineer, as a team principal, you mean in which category?
For example, like engineering or working in the teams in general. Just for like more technical. I was thinking about also maybe larger.
I mean, engineer, I will say do a good university. Probably identify in which camp of activity, is it around engine, aerodynamic, chassis, and then try to get into a racing team. You know, it's a bit like academy. If you want to be a driver, you start karting, Formula 4, 3, 2, 1, and probably go in a smaller team, try to learn, and then progress from there.
Bonjour Monsieur Todt, j'ai juste une question. Plus fort. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez, qu'est-ce qui est la différence entre un bon pilote et un champion du monde, par exemple Michael Schumacher, quand vous étiez chez Ferrari avant? Qu'est-ce qui différencie un bon pilote et un champion du monde?
So, I mean, you take Formula 1 you have 20 drivers. So all drivers are good. But of course, among the 20, you have maybe 2, 3 who have something more. But, you know, for me, motor racing, contrary to other sport, is a combination. The car, the team, the driver. And you can see, from one race from one season to another one, you can have a different leader, a different team and driver who are winning most of the races, simply because the car is better. I mean, to give you an example, I was talking about you have 20 drivers in the field. Between the best and the worst, it will be maybe 4 or 5 tenths. But between a car, the best and the worst, you can have 2 seconds. So it means you put the best drivers in the worst car, he will still be 1 second behind another driver who is not as good, but who has the best car. So ideally, and you know that's what is happening since many years, you need to have the best combination. Best driver, best team, best car, and then you will have long-term championship.
Hello, Mr. Todt. I'm over here. I was wondering your opinion on the importance of the commercial aspect of F1 with them deciding to change tracks like Imola, which I think are more exciting for motor racing, to tracks like Madrid, which I think opts for attracting different audiences rather than focusing on the racing. So I was wondering your opinion on that.
I mean, the loss of Imola in the championship?
Yeah, just like the impact of prioritizing different locations and maybe fitting tracks in different locations to attract.
You know, in a way, it's another kind of competition. And at the moment, you have 24 Grand Prix in the yearly calendar. And of course, Formula 1 has become very popular, very attractive. Also, financially, it's become quite a strong business, but to host one event is not easy. And incidentally, Italy had until last year, since a few years, the 2 Grand Prix, and I mean there is a huge demand from other countries, other parts of the world. So in a way, that's competition, and the promoter is deciding for what he feels is the best for the championship. Saying that, I mean, Imola is a great track with a great atmosphere, and it's a shame to lose them. But we have had other examples where some great venues have gone, like French Grand Prix, German Grand Prix. So it's simply because. I mean, the organizers and all commercial rights holders did not manage to get the proper standard.
So I'm actually a parent, but I have followed your career. I was a big fan of Michael Schumacher, and actually my question, which may be relevant for these students as they go into their future careers, is that Ross Brown was your top engineer working for you when you won all those wonderful titles. How did you give him the space to become successful, and how did he learn from you? Because as these students will go into their careers, they will have bosses that they have to work with. So it would be interesting, I think, for them to understand what is a really positive way to advance in your career and succeed, having a leader such as yourself basically guiding them and giving them the space, maybe giving them the guidance.
So, I think that's the beauty about life. You learn every day. And I think it's very important to realize that everybody can give you something. And that's why I call, for me it's something incidentally, I have a little frame in front of my desk with two things. Only mediocres have raised their maximum, and the other one is maximum of pride is humility. So I think it's very important to always to remain very humble and to learn and to know that in a way it's something which is fascinating, because for me the most fascinating things on earth is human being. You have a population of 8 billion people, and 8 billion people who are different. And the reason why I was talking earlier about creating the Brain Institute, because we have thousands of illness, we don't know how it works, we don't know how to cure it. And sometimes you face situation, look, 4 years ago, when a monster invaded the planet, COVID-19, the world was lost. We did not know. And incidentally, normally to find a vaccine, it takes 10 years. As it was a threat to the planet, it was found in 1 year. So probably a lot more should be done on human research. But clearly, it is very important to understand that we need to learn, and we can learn every day from each other.
So we've seen a lot in Formula One. Obviously, there's only 20 spaces, and there's a polemic question of some drivers paying their way into the sport. And obviously, we can also see this in real life fields such as businesses. And as you said yourself, you didn't come from a background with a racing driver as your dad, or someone in your family that had this field in their background. So what was one mindset that allowed you to follow your passion and pursue your dream? Thank you.
What was this question? I didn't see it.
What is one mindset?
No, who is the one who is asking the question?
Me.
Okay. So what is a driver? Can you?
Well, some drivers, they pay their way into the sport. You've seen that before as well. But you yourself, you didn't come from a background with racing drivers or parents who worked in Formula One. So what was one mindset that allowed you to pursue your passion?
Everybody, we all have a passion, but probably, and it's very different, because sometimes you have a passion to achieve your dream, which is in the sport, in motor racing. But I think you must respect the passion of everybody and try to encourage. I'm not sure I do answer properly to your question, but you want to precise it? I must say, communication is not the best. So,
What was the subject that...
what was?
What was something
But you know, it's not only in Formula One. I think if you have the passion to, in a way, if you have the passion in sport, it's easier to identify the result because, if you take motor racing, you are first, second, you retire, you are in the back of the grid, so you cannot really rate, you can properly rate what you do, but you can have passion for doing other things like I have now, and it's very difficult to quantify the result. It's like, in a way, I'm very much involved with the United Nations. You have what is called SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. You have 17 goals, which are, in a way, to improve the planet, including climate change, road safety, human rights. But, it's very difficult to quantify that. But if you are determined, if you are convinced that you want to achieve something, you should follow your dream.
Hello, Mr. Todt. In general, what leads to success, passion, or determination?
What is passion?
No, what leads to success, passion, or determination?
Work.
Merci, Monsieur Todt. Thank you for sharing with us your key insights, your reflections, and your journey. It is such an honor to have someone who left such an enduring mark on motorsport as well as global road safety with us for our first session. This interview reminds us that behind every championship, every global initiative, there is a person driven by purpose as well as passion. Thank you. I want to thank all the staff that made this possible, and please welcome Mr. Halden on stage.
Thank you so much. I can see that you briefly forgot what I do. That's okay. I often forget what I do as well. First of all, I'd like you to please congratulate our two students here. Events like this are normally organised by members of staff, and we invite students to come along, and they come along and they go. But the driving force behind this event was the students, and that was really incredible. So well done, guys. And Monsieur Todt, thank you so much. I was amazed when I heard that you were coming to our school. We're really humbled. Thank you so much. I'm going to bore you all now with a brief tale of my childhood. So, I grew up watching Formula One in the 1980s. Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, latterly Michael Schumacher. And I remember very clearly the day when Ayrton Senna lost his life. And thanks to the work that you've done, as you said, you have made Formula One a safer sport. But also, road deaths are a serious problem and end many lives prematurely every single year. It's one of the biggest preventable causes of death. So thank you for the work that you continue to do with the UN to try and make our roads safer and to reduce that tragic loss of life. Thank you, Mr. And thank you to the audience.